we're gonna start off obviously top down with the Kansas City Chiefs. They made it to the AFC Championship last year and lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. They went 12-5. Some big moves, some big turnover happened. In case you didn't hear, one of the guys that they lost was Tyreek Hill via trade. That was, there was a contract dispute there. Lost a few other key pieces: running back Darrell Williams, center Austin Blythe, safety Tyrann Mathieu, safety Daniel Sorensen, who some people might be happier about that. It may not be much of a loss, according to some. Linebacker Anthony Hitchens, defensive tackle Jaron Reed, edge rusher Melvin Ingram, and cornerbacks Chardavius Ward, who we mentioned last episode, went to San Francisco, and Mike Hughes. Now, they did add some pieces, brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling as well, brought in running back Ronald Jones, Carlos Dunlap, Justin Reed, brought him in, the safety from Houston. So maybe he's probably going to replace Tyron. And then in the draft, grabbed a cornerback, addressed that need in the first round with Trent McDuffie. And then with I believe that was the pick they got from the Dolphins. And then with their own pick, they grabbed edge rusher George Karlaftis in the first round. And then also, to continue addressing wide receiver, they drafted Skye Moore in the second round and also grabbed another safety, Brian Cook from Cincinnati. So I'm going to throw it to you, John. What are your thoughts on their offseason, and what do you expect? How do you expect it to affect their regular season?
Well, honestly, I was pretty impressed with the way the Chiefs handled this offseason. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill thing was really the big story. And I think that most people are overreacting to this trade just a little bit. Um, Obviously, there's going to be some natural changes and bumps in the road as the season goes on, and you're going to miss a guy like Tyreek Hill because there's simply no other player in the NFL that can replicate what he does with his speed, with his agility, his acceleration, his ability to just quickly change directions with or without the ball. He's truly one of a kind. And so they're not going to be able to replicate exactly what he was able to provide for that offense. But I think a lot of people are discounting the Chiefs very heavily going into this season. And I think the fact that they're doing that is just showing that people are sort of overrating Tyreek Hill a little bit and underrating Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, Chris Jones, all the guys that they have over there. So yes, I know they lost two of their key players from their Super Bowl run in Tyrann Mathieu and Tyreek Hill, but I do think they did a fantastic job at replacing them this offseason. So, just starting it with a wide receiver with replacing Tyreek Hill, they decided to not just replace him with one big move or one, a guy in the first round. They went out and they just got a bunch of guys. And at some point, you keep throwing darts at the dartboard, you're going to hit a bullseye. So they got Juju Smith Schuster. They got Marquez Valdez Scantling. They got Skye Moore. I'm a big fan of all three of those additions because I think they can all bring different skill sets to this offense. And so we can just see which one fits in the best. We can see maybe even a couple of them fit in really well. And I think that Juju Smith Schuster is someone that's really being overlooked this offseason. And I think that he could have a really big year. Obviously, he didn't have the greatest end to his time in Pittsburgh. He was dealing with different injuries. He was getting overlooked because of the additions of Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson and some of the other guys who were having sort of, breakout years. Pat Fryermuth got involved in the passing game. And I think that Juju could have a really, really good season in an entirely different offense. Yes, the Steelers were good, but Big Ben was not even close to what Patrick Mahomes is these days, and he didn't have a true number one option taking away the attention from him like a guy like Travis Kelsey will. And he didn't have an offensive play caller who was as creative as Andy Reid. And so, sort of like yesterday, we talked about Allen Robinson getting everything upgraded around him. I feel like Juju Smith Schuster is in a far better offense right now than he was the rest of his career. And so I think he could have a fantastic year and is someone that's being overlooked. But also, Marquez Valdez Scantling, good deep threat. Sometimes he's a little unreliable, but overall, he provides size, speed, something that the Chiefs historically don't really have is size at the wide receiver position, and he gives you that, but also doesn't sacrifice the speed. So I think that he could be an interesting deep threat for them. And then Skye Moore, everybody's super excited about what he could do. A stud receiver out of the draft. I'm really excited about what he could do, and I think that he could be great. And I just want to throw this out there to anybody who is down on the Chiefs offense because of Tyreek Hill leaving. You got to remember that Andy Reid historically has drafted a lot of great receivers, and he didn't need to do it in the first round. And he's also developed a lot of great receivers. Tyreek Hill was a fifth round pick. Nobody expected him to be what he was. When he first came out, he was just fast. That was it. He didn't really have great route running. His hands were okay, but he wasn't a receiver. He was just a speedster. And the Chiefs were able to develop him into that. And that's not to take anything away from Tyreek Hill because he absolutely worked incredibly hard and improved himself and all that kind of stuff. But I think the message being sent here by Andy Reid and the Chiefs is, hey, we're not going to commit $30 million to a guy that we honestly think in today's NFL we can probably replace. And so I think they did a fantastic job doing that by getting a multitude of options just to see who can fit the best. And then I really love what they did on defense. I felt like they had a really, really great draft specifically on defense. Trent McDuffie, who's one of our favorite corners, very versatile. If there was any comp that you could give him, it was probably a Tyrann Mathieu. So you got rid of Tyrann Mathieu. Well, you replaced him a little bit with a guy like Trent McDuffie who can take those same responsibilities in the nickel spot. He can take the same responsibilities, maybe occasionally playing safety, playing on the outside. He has that versatility. You got Justin Reed, who's one of the best young safeties in the NFL. So he's a great addition. You add Brian Cook, like you said, out of Cincinnati. That was great. And then George Karlaftis, another defensive end pass rusher who a lot of people are very high on, yourself included. He wasn't in my top 5, but I think he was like number 6 for me. And he's a great power rusher. He's got a lot of great strength. And I think that he is going to be the edge rusher that they were hoping Chris Jones would be. And I love the move because it allows Chris Jones to go back inside where he's going to dominate, where he best fits. So I really love this Chiefs offseason. And although they did lose a lot of their, pretty heavy hitters, like we talked about with Tyreek Hill, Tyrann Mathieu, even some, lesser rated names, but still very important to the team, like Charvarius Ward, Anthony Hitchens, guys like that. Even though they're gone, I thought they did a great job replacing them. So I loved the Chiefs offseason. I still think they're going to be a really good team. And I think that their offense could actually be even better this year than they were last year, because as we saw last year, the one thing that really hurt the Chiefs was when teams would sit back 2 safeties deep. They wouldn't pressure Patrick Mahomes. They'd put as many people in coverage as they possibly could, and it just didn't work. I think the Chiefs are acutely aware of that, and I think that guys like Juju, Skye Moore, Travis Kelce, just the versatility that all those guys can provide, I think they're going to be a lot better in the intermediate game and the short game than they were last year. So I think the Chiefs could be I mean, they're still going to be a Super Bowl contender. When you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're always going to be that. So I'm just saying, don't discount the Chiefs.
Yeah, I want to really start off where you ended because if you think about it, the Chiefs kind of had a down year last year in terms of mainly, and I think this is going to be the biggest progression too. Is Patrick Mahomes didn't have his best year. At least I felt he was shaky in the pocket. There's times where he wasn't going through his reads, and I think Tyreek Hill departing is actually going to kind of help him trust his reads, maybe a little bit more. And I'm sure too, even if he was there, regardless, Andy Reid went back with the film with him and probably watched those because it watched some film and saw, hey, like Patrick, you didn't have to leave the pocket at this time and break the play. Like you had time, and this guy was open, and so yeah, I think kind of had a similar effect when the Texans traded. Hopkins, the last year Deshaun Watson played in Houston. I know he's not the best name to bring up. It's the only example I can think of. He had a really good year all around. He wasn't, locking into DeAndre Hopkins. Didn't have that get out of jail free card that, yes, they made amazing plays, but there were incompletions that you don't see a lot, the incompletions or the bad throws or just things like, or the missed reads that, because he was focusing on his star wide receiver. So, I think this Chiefs, it'll be a harder team to game plan because, like you mentioned, they have MVS as a deep threat. I think Juju's going to be on the field a lot more to be the short intermediate type guy, along with Kelce. And then hopefully hopefully they lean on the run game a little bit more because their offensive line's pretty good. And we'll see if they involve Skye Moore as well because, you mentioned Andy Reid very good at utilizing wide receivers even early in their career. Remember Tyreek was an amazing punt returner, and they found ways to get him reverse sweeps and things like that. Just get the ball in his hands, and I believe they can do the same with Skye Moore. And then, yeah, to their defense. Remember last year, like you said, half the year Chris Jones is playing defensive end, and then I think they finally realized like we're better off having Chris Jones in the middle because teams can't run away from him, or it's just harder. Kind of like with Aaron Donald, it's harder to get more help over on his side when he's right in the middle and causing havoc there. So yeah, and two, people forget Frank Clark was dealing with some off the field things last year. I think he'll be, and there's already reports that he's already looking better this off season or in training camp. So maybe with the less distractions and the fact that they did restructure his contract too, so maybe I'm not sure the details, but hey, maybe it's more incentive based now. So maybe along with no off the field stuff, he'll be just back to the Frank Clark we know on that side, and that leaves whoever they have on the other side, whether it be Carlos Dunlap or if George Karlaftis does emerge. I think their D line will be much better, and then secondary, they've had guys Rashad Fenton and L'Jarius Sneed. They played pretty well last year, so losing Tre'Davious Ford hurts, but like we mentioned, they have Trent McDuffie, and then at safety, Juan Thornhill's been solid, and they've had some solid linebackers that they've been kind of bringing along, and Willie Gay Jr. as well. So, yeah, I expect this Chiefs team to be right in the mix at the end, even if they don't win this stacked division. They're still one of the more dangerous, if not, still one of the most dangerous teams in the league, and I'm excited to see what they can do.